to join me tonight here where I am. Hope you are all having a lovely day wherever you are, morning, evening, night, wherever you are. We have just under 400 people in the waiting room. I think we are going to just wait a little bit for the waiting room to fill up a bit. How's it going, everybody? I'm curious, where is everyone tuning in from? Let me know where you're tuning in from. So thank you everyone for joining today, for taking the time to join this live Zoom call. This is going to be a fun one. This is my first time actually ever doing anything like this. So I appreciate you taking the time to join me tonight. Essentially, what I'm going to be doing is showing you guys a little bit of my workflow within DaVinci Resolve, telling you guys a little bit of my story, why I decided to make the switch to this program. And we're going to be diving into a bunch of stuff. So it's going to be a fun one. You're definitely going to learn something new. Doesn't matter what software you're working in. Yeah, so for today's agenda, we're going to be going over all of this stuff right here. So we're going to start off. I'm just going to share a little bit about my story. I'm going to be comparing DaVinci Resolve to both Premiere Pro and Final Cut. Just telling you guys a little bit of comparing each one of the programs, because I know, most people either work in one or the other, whether it's Premiere Pro or Final Cut. So just going to be sharing my experience with both of those programs and why I believe DaVinci Resolve is superior. We also have I'm also going to be showing you guys my workflow, so you guys are going to follow along as I put together a little video within DaVinci Resolve with some new footage that I shot. I'm going to be diving into some of my favorite features, and I'm going to be sharing some tips that are going to be applicable for all editors. Doesn't matter if you're working within Premiere Pro or Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve. Doesn't matter. I think that these are all, again, very important tips that you can apply to your editing workflow, no matter what software you're working in. And then I'm also going to be sharing a little bit about my course and the community, and giving you guys some updates on that stuff. And then towards the end, we are going to be looking at a project file that I've been working on for a pretty long time now. It's my next drone reel. So that's been an exciting project for me to focus on. And I'm stoked to show you guys a little sneak peek. You'll be able to see the actual project file. And then after that, we're going to be doing a little Q&A. So fortunately right now I can't see the chat, so I don't see what you guys are writing. Let's see. Cool. So let's dive right into this. So if you are not familiar with who I am by now, I am a video editor. I've been editing videos. I'm a filmmaker and video editor. I've been making videos ever since I was about 11 years old. That's when I got my first little point and shoot camera. And ever since I was introduced to the concept of video editing, ever since I understood how video editing works, I was, blown away. I thought it was magic. Just the ability to cut certain parts of your clip out was really interesting to me. And ever since then, I had decided to just dive deep into the program. So at first I started with Windows Movie Maker. That was the only program that I had access to when I was first starting off. It was free. From there, I moved into Sony Vegas, which is an interesting program. I actually don't know a single person that still uses that program. I don't actually know if it still is in use. I think it might be, but it's rare that I come across someone that uses Sony Vegas. And from there, I moved on to Premiere Pro and After Effects. And I had stuck with Premiere Pro and After Effects for pretty much just over a decade. That was my main software that I was using. And it was great. You know, it was great for when I was starting off. I wasn't going, you know, too in depth with my projects. I wasn't like too elaborate with them until I started to do pieces like Hey Tim. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that video, but that's probably one of my most popular pieces. Whenever I come across someone who knows my work, that's like the first thing they bring up is Hey Tim and how much it's impacted their life. That film was edited in Premiere Pro. Same with my last drone reel. But you know, it was as I started to do more complex projects and, you know, start to want to level up my color grading, want to level up my sound design, I started to see where this program was lacking. You know, there's a lot of things that I just was not able to do and do really easily. And I'm going to dive into exactly what the issues were later on. But the main reason that like after about 10 years, my spark and excitement for video editing started to die off. And that was kind of scary to me, to be honest. Like this was, you know, this is my art form. This is how I express myself creatively. This is what I've been doing and like communicating, how I've been communicating my artistic expression to the world for 10 years, you know. And then I started to get to this place where I legitimately started to get sick of it. I was, you know, I didn't want to start. I lost this desire, this excitement to start big projects again. And the main reason that was because of trauma that I had built up from the amount of issues that I had with Premiere Pro, really. Now I know everyone's experience with the software is different. I know some people that, you know, don't go that in depth, aren't that that don't do, you know, more elaborate projects. The program will suffice. But for me, someone that, you know, was trying to really push the limits of video editing, I had a lot of issues with the software, and I'm going to dive into those issues in a second. But yeah, that is pretty much my story. Eventually, I had switched over to DaVinci Resolve after experimenting with Final Cut as well. Back in 2020, I was reminded of all the issues that I had with Premiere Pro when I first started shooting and editing all the videos for my course. So the first launch, we did 80 video lessons. That's a lot of video lessons, and I was editing a lot of them alongside my team. And the lack of reliability and performance that I would see from Premiere Pro was really at some points it was sickening. It was like, it would give me, I would have a lot of headaches and stress, you know, around the software. So that was a big reason why I wasn't excited to dive into the program anymore. And that's just, you know, that was just the catalyst that made me start to explore other options out there. It wasn't until I had actually started to dive into Final Cut and DaVinci Resolve that I had realized, okay, like there's a lot of other things that I'm missing within the software. So that's my story, a bit of my story. So let's go into the specifics of why I chose DaVinci Resolve over Premiere Pro. So we're going to start with that. So the first thing, this is what I was just talking about. So Premiere Pro, in my personal experience, and pretty much every single other editor that I know who used the program or still uses the program can relate to, it lacks the reliability that I need. There's constant crashes, or the most consistent crashes out of any of the softwares that I've used. And I spend the most time troubleshooting, which is something I hate doing. When something doesn't work the way that it's supposed to, and I'm just like spending time on the internet, Googling it, trying to figure out why it's not working the way it's supposed to. That's something I absolutely hate doing. And honestly, it's not something that I've had to do in a very long time, which I'm very stoked about because I've switched over to DaVinci. Um, so yeah, one thing to mention is I have always worked on the Mac operating system. For someone like me who travels all the time, I have to have a more mobile setup. A MacBook has been by far the best solution for me and my lifestyle. I know that you can totally build custom PCs, and that's one argument that a lot of Premiere fanboys have, is that they're able to get the performance that they want out of it with their extremely spec'd out custom PCs. I personally love the Mac operating system. I'm going to continue using it with the new silicon chips that Apple is releasing. I'm just very excited for the future of Apple. And, these computers, never had any issues with them. I love the operating system. I love how they're also, compatible with all my other devices, my iPhone, my iPad. You have things like AirDrop. And the speeds nowadays with the silicon chips are very impressive. So the next thing is extremely slow render speeds. Premiere Pro on the Mac operating system sucks. It is terrible at rendering. It's very slow. Once you've dabbled with Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve, those are pretty much similar. Sometimes DaVinci Resolve outperforms Final Cut. You'll see clearly like what you've been missing out on in terms of render speeds. Premiere Pro is very slow. It didn't have the tools I needed to really dial in my color grades. This was a big one for sure. So within my 10 years of editing in Premiere Pro, I had always just thought that I just wasn't a good colorist when it comes to video. Like I was always very confident in color grading my photos. If I'm sure you guys are familiar with my work. If you check my Instagram, like I always loved the color grading of my photos. I would always be able to dial those in. I was also always really good at dialing in skin tones, at making everything look vivid, bright, and beautiful, changing specific colors on anything, on any object, on anywhere in my scene. And that's because it's an image, right? But also Lightroom also gives you a lot of amazing tools to make those changes. So I was always very proficient at coloring photos, but whenever it came to videos, I was just like, I do not know how to do this. I did not feel confident, and it wasn't a part of the editing process that excited me. And I always thought that was just because I wasn't good at it, but that's not the reality. The reality is that Premiere Pro just lacked the tools that I need in order to actually make the changes that I want and to confidently approach any project in terms of its color grading. So and that wasn't really something that I really understood until I actually made the switch, until I understood how the color tab works within DaVinci. Once I understood it, I was like, okay, like I was blind, now I see. Masking is not something that I enjoy doing in Premiere Pro. It's very bare bones, and just not fun. Within DaVinci Resolve, masking is definitely by far it's my favorite place to mask by far. I love all the shortcuts and tools, and just the workflow that they've created around masking that makes it very easy and very fun. So you also have to use After Effects to do advanced compositing work. So, even simple things like motion tracking something within Premiere Pro, motion tracking text to a scene, or making a 3D camera within a scene and then putting like a 3D object or anything like that. Or, trying to do an effect where, you might I don't know if you guys have seen the, what was it? It's the Beats commercial where, the camera tracked to the ear. So the movement of the camera, the scene is tracked to an object within the scene. That type of stuff, I had to always jump to another program, After Effects, to do that kind of stuff, and use something called Dynamic Link, which I would only use for very simple things. Anytime it came to one of my more complex transitions, there's no way I would ever use Dynamic Link, because I don't think I've ever had a successful attempt at using Dynamic Link when trying to do a more complex transition. And if you guys are familiar with my work, you've seen my YouTube channel, like a good example of that is like the wave transition, where I do a breakdown on my YouTube. The camera follows Chelsea up a wave, and then it goes down, and then we're in the clouds. And that was a fairly complex transition. That was something that I had to bring all my clips into After Effects individually. Did not use Dynamic Link. Dynamic Link would be I just wouldn't use it because I've had so many issues with it in the past when trying to do anything more complex. And of course, a huge one is Premiere Pro. You got to pay a monthly fee, which sucks. I'm not a fan of subscriptions. Now, obviously, I still have the Creative Cloud subscription because I have to use Photoshop. And I do occasionally still use After Effects, but Premiere Pro, I do not use anymore. Fun story, I actually decided to open it up once about a couple days ago, just to help my friend finish an edit that he started in Premiere Pro. I didn't want to have to go through all the work to export the XML, bring it into DaVinci, because there were some more elements to it. You have to like do some extra steps. So I was like, I'll just open up Premiere Pro again. Of course, I open up the program. I want to scrub through my timeline at 2x speed, which is something I do all the time. Playing back the timeline at 1x speed and watching through a long project that's, takes up a lot of time. I like to go through my timeline at least 2x speed. Every time I would do that, the program would freeze up, and I had to wait about 30 to 45 seconds, I'm not joking, until it would unfreeze, and then I can go back to moving things in the timeline. So yeah, Premiere Pro, not a fan of it. I wish Adobe was able to, listen to their users more and actually make the changes that so many of us want, and the performance increase that so many of us want. But it seems like they have not been able to do that still, and makes me even happier that I've decided to switch to DaVinci earlier on. So let's dive into Final Cut. So Final Cut, it didn't have the tools I needed to really dial in my color grades, just like Premiere Pro. The color grading is very basic. It's as basic as it gets. And yeah, I think, just like I said earlier, it wasn't until I actually got into DaVinci Resolve and understood the color tab in there that I realized what I'm missing out on. So masking also is not fun within Final Cut. Masking, if you're trying to do more complex transitions, like myself, masking is something that you do quite often. And, for the masking process, I want it to be fun. I want it to be seamless. I want it to be easy. It is not that in Final Cut. So there's no option to do any kind of motion tracking or advanced compositing in general within Final Cut. It's a very basic program. It's, I guess, more geared towards beginners. A lot of professionals do use it. But it just, when you're wanting to start to do things of that nature, you're going to have to use After Effects, or you're going to have to download plugins. So you don't have that option within the program. You can only view one timeline at a time. This was a huge drawback for me in Final Cut. Like, I actually couldn't believe that when I was first diving into that program. For someone like myself, and you guys will see a little bit of this process, I always need to see at least 2 timelines at once. For a lot of the time, I will have my main selects timeline up at the top, and then below that, I will have my main edit, and to be able to see all of my selects on the top, and then my main edit, pull things from the top timeline to the bottom one. That's just standard. That's just standard for me. It's standard for a lot of professionals that I know. And Final Cut doesn't have that option, which is crazy. So, that was a huge drawback for me as well. There's also no dedicated audio workspace within Final Cut. Of course, you can do a lot of things within the main interface, but it lacks a lot of features like audio ducking, for example. You can't sidechain, which is something that I do all the time now for my projects. And of course, Final Cut only works on Apple, right? Only works on Mac. So if you're trying to work if you're trying to work from a Mac and a PC, you're gonna have to send XML files, and a lot of the things that you do within Final Cut, if they're more complex, then they won't translate in that XML file when you're trying to open it up in Premiere or anything else. So yeah, there's that. So last slide before I dive into the program. This is going to be fun. You guys will be able to watch me go through the program and just see how I flow in there. So I just want to talk about why DaVinci Resolve is good for editors of all levels. Let me just see here. So I hear a lot of people, the first thing that they say is DaVinci Resolve sounds complicated. Okay. That's just because you've seen like crazy big node trees in Fusion or the color tab, and like you've just seen, you know, professionals do crazy things within the software. And yes, like it has a lot of advanced features. You know, it's in my opinion the best all-in-one software out there. It's insane the amount of things that you can do. But just because it has all those features does not mean that you need to learn all of them, and does not mean that you need to use all of them. You guys will see, we're going to dive into the program in a second. You'll see the cut tab and the edit tab. Those are extremely intuitive, very well thought out pages of the software. And if you're just starting out, those are great places to start. You know, in terms of using any software, I would definitely recommend DaVinci Resolve even to beginners, because it was designed from the ground up, and those first two pages, you know, are very intuitive, very easy to understand, and very beginner friendly. So, and then you have things like Fusion, which is the advanced compositing tab, which, you know, if you are not really looking to do any kind of motion tracking or advanced compositing work, then you're just never going to have to open up that tab, you know, plain and simple. It's there if you need it, but you don't necessarily have to use it you don't have to understand how to use it to be in the program. Same with the color tab, same with Fairlight. You know, you can do pretty much everything within the edit tab that a basic editor would need to do. And then it's not until you want to start to expand and grow in certain areas that you can start to explore Fusion or the color tab or Fairlight. So like I said, better to have the features and need them, better to have the features and not need them now than to need them and not have them. So, you know, diving into Premiere Pro, you're starting off now, 2 years down the line, you want to really up your color grading skills, and you're like, uh-oh, now I got to download DaVinci Resolve and work between two different programs so that I can start to level up my color grading. You don't want to do that. You do, like, that's not fun. To be able to have everything in one program is amazing. And it's also easy to switch from another software with custom keyboard shortcuts. So DaVinci Resolve allows you to switch the default keyboard shortcut layouts of both Premiere Pro and Final Cut very quickly. It takes a second to do that, and then right away you're starting off with a lot of the similar keyboard shortcuts that you would have within Premiere Pro or Final Cut. Now, if you're starting off, I would definitely not recommend using the shortcuts that come with any of these programs, really, because the way that they're mapped out, it kind of blows my mind that all of these companies, even DaVinci Resolve, they create the standard keyboard shortcuts in a way where you have to use both of your hands on the keyboard, and you have to like spread your hands to different places on the keyboard in order to initiate like pretty basic commands, which is not dope. For a fast and efficient workflow, you want to be able to initiate certain commands very quickly. And that is why I've spent so long, pretty much my whole life, working on a custom keyboard shortcut layout where I've made my own custom keyboard shortcuts to pretty much all of the main actions that I perform within any editing software. And I've mapped them out in a way where they can be initiated with just one hand on my keyboard. So a lot of thought, time, and effort has gone into planning this, and I would give a lot of credit to this shortcut system that I've created that has enabled me to be such a fast and efficient editor. So thank you for holding in there. Appreciate you guys. Now it's time to dive into the actual program. So over here, we have DaVinci Resolve. So this is probably not the first page that you will see within the software. This is the edit tab right here. fairly straightforward. It looks very similar to both Premiere Pro and Final Cut. You know, you have your preview window up here, you have your timeline down here, you have your inspector over here, and then on the left over here, we have our media pool. This is where we bring in all of our footage, right? So as you guys can see, this program is split up into 7 different tabs on the bottom here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, the reason Blackmagic decided to do this was because they essentially rethought the editing process from the ground up, and they wanted to make the editing process as seamless as possible. So what they did was they broke down the editing process into each one of their own sections. So let's think about what is the process of editing a video. First thing that you start off with is importing your media, right? So this is the media tab. This is the tab I probably spend the least amount of time in, just because it doesn't take that much time to import your media. So up here, we have our media storage. This allows us to explore our computer or hard drives, look for media anywhere. And down here is the media pool where we can actually bring in our footage. So let's say I want to bring this folder over here into my media pool. I've just successfully been able to bring in my footage here. And this is also a really good interface to just deal with your media in general. We can go over to this kind of a view here where we're able to see 2 panels at once. So if we want to move clips between folders like this, we can do that really easily. So, you know, this is just a great space for media management in general. Now, the next tab is the cut tab. So it does pretty much what the name sounds like. This is a place where you cut your footage. So I remember when I was first learning about DaVinci Resolve, I was like, okay, like why is there, you know, 2 places to edit my timeline, to edit my video? Because we have the cut tab, and then we have the edit tab, which is next to it here. And they are kind of similar in a way, but they're also pretty different. So the cut tab is awesome because it allows me to focus just on the task of cutting my footage, which is something that I spend a lot of time on when starting any kind of new project. I spend a lot of time just focusing on cutting the footage, you know, taking out the bad parts, the bad clips, or the parts of clips that I know I'm not going to be using. So cutting out all the garbage and refining it so that I have just the gold, you know? So I'm going to demonstrate a bit of what that looks like here. This is a day's worth of shooting. I shot a little Bugatti with my friend Jacob out here in Dubai. I'm just going to bring this all into the timeline down here. And you guys will be able to quickly just watch how I use this space here. So I'm able to scrub through my timeline with the Colder Creative keyboard shortcuts. I can ripple delete clips very quickly, just like this. I can move forwards and backwards, and I can essentially just start cutting up my clips and just isolating the best parts of the clips, right? So a lot of this stuff, it's stuff that I'm not going to use. Like this is like behind the scenes stuff, or like, you know how you roll when you start rolling before a clip, and then, you know, you don't want that first part. I'll cut all that stuff out. Essentially, this is where I kind of trim my videos and refine my timelines to keep just the best parts. Now, the really cool thing about the cut tab is that you can't zoom in and out of your timeline. You see how, you know, in the edit tab, this is the tab that is most similar to Premiere Pro and Final Cut. You can zoom in and out of your timeline, right? That's pretty common. That's something that editors do all the time. But here you can't zoom in and out. Now, why wouldn't you be able to zoom in and out? At first, I thought that was kind of weird, but then I started to understand. There's 2 views of the timeline here. At the top, you have the full timeline, so you can see everything from start to finish. And this bottom timeline here is basically a zoomed in section of wherever the playhead is up here at the top. So that's pretty awesome. You can quickly move to different parts of your timeline just like this. I can also move clips around in here as well very easily, very quickly and very easily. So this is actually a really good interface to just move things around and get cut your clips and just get your timeline to a place where, you know, you can start to edit a story. And then I'll move on to the edit tab to you know, start to piece together the actual story with the music and whatnot. Now, really quick, I'm just going to delete all of this. I want to show you guys one other cool feature that's here. It's called source tape. So if I have a folder selected here in my media pool, what I can do is click source tape, and look at this. This is beautiful. This timeline right here, this basically shows me everything within this one folder at a glance. So I can scrub through one timeline, and as you can see to the left over here, it's jumping between what clip is selected. This is huge. This is like a really big deal because I no longer have to just click and, you know, scrub through like this. Give me one sec. Give me a second, guys. Cool. So source tape is awesome because I can see everything within a folder and make my selects just like this. So instead of, you know, double clicking on each clip individually, I can just scrub through and very quickly access clips just like this. So, you know, if there's a section of a clip that I want, I think there's this one. Yeah, these driving clips are cool. I can just hit my in and out shortcuts just like that. And bring it into the timeline just like that. There's a couple different clips here. That one's pretty cool. And let's bring in a couple more. Just gonna try to find some nice clips so that we can actually play around with them and show you guys what's possible here. So I know there's this one other clip that I really liked. Yeah, right here. I'm not much of a car guy, but it was fun to shoot this car. It's fun shooting cars. I do enjoy it. Yeah, this clip right here. This one's a banger. I shot this on a one wheel. I was using a one wheel and a Ronin, and I love shooting like that. It's honestly so fun. Cool. So I got a couple clips right here. Let's head over to the edit tab. So what's important to understand is, one sec. What's important to understand about the program is that the timeline is the same throughout the entire program. So if I'm working on this one timeline, it's going to be the same timeline that I see in any of the tabs within the program. If we look at the timeline here, it's the same timeline. If we look at Fairlight, it's the same timeline. So that's one important thing to remember. So yeah, it's important to understand that this is the same timeline throughout the entire program. So you're just focusing on a different part of the editing process on different tabs of the software. So here in the edit tab, this is basically, like I said, the same kind of interface that you would see within Premiere Pro or Final Cut. You know, you have your timeline down here, you have your media pool over here to the left, and then you have your timeline over here, or you have your inspector over here in the top right. So media pool, we already went over that. The inspector over here to the right, this is the area where we can make changes. Like we can zoom in on our clips, we can change the positioning, we can change the rotation, but we're also able to do that within the preview window over here as well. So we can make all those changes here. We can also keyframe, crop, compose, like change the opacity. We can stabilize our clips over here. We can play around with the speed, and we can also stabilize our clips as well. So, and honestly, stabilization within DaVinci Resolve, probably the best stabilization I've ever used. And yeah, this is, you know, pretty much the edit tab. We also have effects over here. So we have a ton of different effects if we scrub over them. it shows you examples of what the effect looks like. We have like cross dissolve. We got dip to color dissolve. We have tons and tons of different effects and transitions here. Personally, I don't use these types of effects that much, but I know a lot of editors, they do like to use this stuff. So you have a lot of options here, and you can also download your own from the internet and bring them in. Next up, we also have the sound library. This is huge. Basically, you're able to connect your database of sounds wherever it is on your computer, and essentially link any folder on your computer to have the program catalog all those sounds and bring them into here. So this is great because every time you start a new project file, you don't have to import all of your sound effects. You can just open the sound library, search for whatever it is that you're looking for. So over here, let's type in car. Let's see if there's any car sound effects. We can see all of my car sound effects, or any sound effects that have the word car in them. Now, so the sound library is a huge level up within this program, and I use it all the time. I absolutely love it. A lot of the time when I am working in the space, I'll also close the inspectors. So I'm just working with the timeline and just cutting my clips in here, moving things around. Now, another part of the edit tab that I absolutely love is this little window right here in the bottom left of the preview. It basically allows me to choose what it is that I want to be doing within the preview window. So right now it's selected to transform. So when this button is enabled, I'm able to transform my clip here within the preview window. If I change this to crop, I'm able to now crop my image however I want. And there's a bunch of other features here too. This just makes it a lot more interactive and much easier to make a lot of different changes to each individual clip. So that is awesome. Now, I'm going to dive in a little bit into Fusion over here. I'm going to show you guys an example of how I would use Fusion in this case. So I have a couple of drone clips here. Let's see. I have this one. Cool. So I have this little section of my friend Jacob walking up to the car and just standing in front of it. So let's bring that into the timeline. Now, let's say I wanted to motion track the movement of the camera specifically to Jacob's head right here. If that's all I wanted to do. If that's what I wanted to do in Premiere Pro, I would have to open up After Effects, do it there. I'd have to use dynamic links, so I'd have to use a separate program. Or if I wanted to do it in Final Cut, I just wouldn't do it because there's no option. I'd have to export the clip and then bring it into After Effects or another software like that. So in this case, it's super easy. Check this out. I have the clip selected in the Edit tab. I can go over to Fusion right here, and I can just load up a tracker in this page right here. So I could just type in tracker, and this is all stuff that I dive into in the course. So this might seem complicated to you. It's pretty straightforward. Honestly, this is a process that pretty much stays the same. So let's say I wanted the camera to stay locked on to the movement of his head. So we can get like kind of like a video game effect in this scenario. What I can do is change these settings right here. This is all stuff that is explained within my course. So we can see the tracker is tracking his head, and it's doing it very well. That's one thing about the tracker within this program. It's very fast and very reliable. Like, that is ridiculously fast. It's faster than real time. Now that that's been done, I can just simply change this to stabilize, and let's see what happens here. So if I press play, how cool is that? We essentially have the scene locked on to his head. That's awesome. And that's something that would normally take a lot longer in any other software because you have to work with other programs. In DaVinci Resolve, you can do it right from within the software, which is huge. So now that I've done that within Fusion, we can see that the whole image is moving around. So what I can do is just quickly scale in over here in the inspector. And now we have this like cool, almost like video game like effect where the camera is locked off to his head. And that's something that I do quite often. So it's great to have that within the program. Cool. So that is just a little example of how I use Fusion in my workflow. Obviously, Fusion is an insane program. There's so much that you can do in here. It's primarily node-based, so it's different than After Effects, the workflow. And at first, when I was first diving into this, I was definitely a bit intimidated by nodes because it was very different. I wasn't familiar with this workflow. I didn't actually understand how nodes work. But once I took the time to learn the foundations of how nodes work, it started to make sense to me. And now I'm a lot more confident in the software, and I prefer it over After Effects for a lot of reasons, especially because it's built right into the software. So that is the Fusion tab. That's just a little sample. I could definitely go on about this tab for hours, but we're gonna have to keep things moving. So next up, we have the color tab. The color tab is the main reason that a lot of people start using DaVinci Resolve. A lot of people edit in Premiere Pro or Final Cut. They'll export their projects, bring it into DaVinci Resolve, and they'll color grade their whole project in here, and then bring it back to their other programs, which is a huge waste of time. I think you should just stay within this program because it does everything else that your other programs do, but it does it better as well. So let's say I wanted to apply a LUT to my entire timeline here, to all the clips in my timeline. Well, that's super easy. I could just go over to the timeline node tree area and apply a LUT. So these LUTs right here, these are all LUTs that come with the Colder Creative course. So whenever you sign up, you get access to my personal LUTs that I use. So let's take one of these, drag it onto the timeline node graph over here. And let's just add another node and quickly make another adjustment here. We can brighten it up. And just like that, we've applied a grade not only to one clip, but to all of them. Now, if you don't know anything about how nodes work, essentially, when you're first starting off, what I tell everyone is to just think of them just like layers. Really, that's it. In this area right here, the way that DaVinci applies each one of these, each of the changes that you've made on each node to your image is from left to right. So over here, the first node, let's turn it on and off to understand what it is. This is our LUT. So I can name it, call it a LUT. And you can basically just think of these as layers when you're first starting off. But nodes are a lot better than layers because you could do a lot more with them. But when you're first just starting off and you're not doing that that many complex things, you can just think of them as layers. They're not that complicated. And give me a sec. I'm just gonna go back to sharing the screen. Sorry about that, guys. Cool. So yeah, nodes. What I tell people when they're first starting off, do not get intimidated by them. Just think of them just as layers. And it's not until you start to build more complex node trees and want to do more complex things when it comes to color grading that you're going to start to route things differently in here. But when you're first starting off, and still for me, a lot of the time, I will just treat the nodes like layers here. So our second node here, this is just our curves, right? So we have our LUT, we have our curves, and then from here on, we can make any other adjustments that we want afterwards. Now let's keep in mind that whatever I'm doing in this space here is going to be applied to the entire timeline. If I want to work on individual clips, then I go to the clip level of the node tree area here. Now, I wish I could talk about all of this more. I could definitely start to ramble for sure. I love editing and I love to teach this stuff just because I'm definitely super passionate about it. But let me show you guys, an example of how I would go about color grading this clip right here. So it's a beautiful clip. And what I would do in Premiere Pro or Final Cut previously is probably just add a LUT and call it a day, make some small adjustments. But let's really make this thing pop. So first things first, let's add a LUT over here. I like this LUT, I like the way it looks. I'm going to call this node or layer just a LUT. I'm going to add another layer before it, and I'm probably going to apply a tiny bit of noise reduction. That's something that I do to almost every single one of my images. So we have amazing noise reduction here in DaVinci Resolve. I go in depth in my course on how I use the noise reduction. It's fairly straightforward. I pretty much do the same thing almost every single time. It's only in certain situations that I will try things differently. And as we can see how the noise reduction affects our image down here. So it does make some changes there. Shadows, I don't know if you guys can see over Zoom, but things are looking a bit cleaner there. Now, so let's rename this. We'll call it noise reduction. Now let's add another LUT or layer on top of all of this. What do we want to do? I probably want to brighten it up a little bit. So let's brighten that up. Make it pop a little bit. Nice, that looks good to me. So that's just a curve. And now let's say I want to start to stylize things a bit more. Let's say I want to affect pretty much just the sky and make it pop more. Right now it's too bright, too white. I want it to be very like vivid yellow. So one of my favorite tools within the color tab is the qualifier right here. It allows me to select certain color, hue, and saturation areas within my image. So as we can see here, I'm trying to isolate the sky here. And then I have these sliders over here to allow me to better tune what area of my image that I am focusing on right here. So let's see here. Cool, so that helps a bit. And as we can see, the gray area is what's not selected. The rest of the image is what is selected. Now that I have that area isolated, I can simply go into my color wheels here and start to bump up the orange tint right here. That looks pretty good to me. Let's actually just refine the selection a bit more. We can see that the top here isn't selected. So let's do that. That's better. Cool. Now let's apply that same color change. Now we're making that sky a lot more orange. We're making it pop a lot more. Let's call this sky because that's what we're just focusing on there. And then I'm going to add one more layer or node on top of this just to darken the ground over here. So let's add a quick mask right here, or window. Shift A, gray area is what is not selected. So I'm going to go like this. And I'm just going to use the S curve to darken the ground over here. That looks pretty good to me. Obviously, I would spend more time on this, but that's the oldest excuse in the book. I hear everyone says that. Ground's a little bit too green. Dial it like that. And one really cool thing about DaVinci Resolve is to add output blanking or a letterbox. You don't have to throw anything on your timeline. That's an option right here within the menu. So I can add these letterboxes to make things look more cinematic. So just like that, we were able to very quickly and easily, and honestly, it's super fun for me to do this kind of stuff, make this image go from this to this. Pretty dope, right? Now, let me give you guys another example, or let me just show you one more thing. Let's say I wanted to change the color of the car. Let's say I wanted to make it a little bit more red than orange. What I could do is use that same qualifier just like before. I can use the shortcut to see the highlight. If you're interested in what all of these shortcuts are, purchase my course and I go in depth. I teach you guys all of it. I can refine my selection here with the qualifier, with these sliders. And now what I can do is we could see a little bit of this background here is selected as well. So what I could do in combination with the qualifiers, I can use a mask. So the masking in here is phenomenal. I love masking within the color tab because it's so fast. Just watch how fast this is. If I select this car here, and I go over to the tracker. I track forwards and backwards. Watch this. Absolutely ridiculous. That was so fast. Now I can see that that mask has refined the selection, and that back part over there is no longer selected. So now let's simply go into our color wheels over here, and let's just change the hue of the car. So just like that, we're able to make it even more, we can completely change the color of the entire car. And that looks pretty legit. Like this, it no longer looks orange. This does not look like it was done in post. It looks like the car was actually this pink color. That looks really good to me. So again, everything off, on, just like that, we were able to take our ideas from our mind and make them a reality with all of these powerful tools within the color tab. And I can go on and on about just how amazing this section of the program is. There's so many like amazing aspects of it to allow you to color grade multiple clips. Like if I wanted to apply this grade to this clip before, all I do is middle mouse click, and just like that, it's applied. Now, obviously, our selections are going to be different, but I can very quickly just apply grades just like this, just by middle mouse clicking. I can create groups, apply certain grades to groups of clips. You no longer have to use adjustment layers in your timelines. Adjustment layers are messy and not fun to deal with. This is a much better, much faster, much more fun way of color grading your footage. And it looks like we are slowly starting to run out of time, so I'm going to have to speed through the rest of this. Fairlight. Trust me when I say this, when you are doing sound design, you want to have a dedicated space for this. You do not want to have to do your sound design here in Premiere Pro or Final Cut. You do not want to be working in this kind of space. You want to, especially once you start doing more elaborate sound design, which pretty much every project of mine moving forwards has, I'm working with tons of different tracks of sound, and that's how you want to separate all your different types of sound effects into individual tracks. That's the best practice. It allows you to stay organized, and it allows you to get the best results. It allows you to actually operate within the sound section of the program much better by separating like sound effects into one track, or specific types of sound effects into one track, music into another one, dialogue in another one. One of the biggest game changers within the Fairlight tab over here is the index. It allows me to see all of my different tracks that I'm using, and I can hide them when I'm not using them. So let's say I have 20 tracks in here. I can hide all the ones that are done. A lot of the time, a lot of these tracks are done. I don't want to be scrolling up and down within my timeline, especially in this kind of a space, looking for certain tracks. That is disgusting. You don't want to be doing that. You want to work in a dedicated audio space. And yeah, I've seriously leveled up my sound design skills within this space. And I'm just more excited to do sound design overall because it's a lot more fun, and I'm a much more confident sound designer because I've taken the time to learn Fairlight. And of course, the last tab is the Deliver tab. This is basically just where we export our videos. There's a lot of really cool stuff within this software, or within this section of the software. But the main one is that you can queue up all of your renders. So for Premiere Pro, you need to use Adobe Media Encoder for this, separate program. Final Cut, you need to use an Apple software to do this. But essentially, I can load up all of my renders in this render queue. So let's say I wanted to export a 4K version, let's say, and then a 1080p version, a 4:5 for social media, a square version. I can load all of those up right here and just click render. And then I can go have a snack, have a coffee. And when I come back, I have all the different versions of my edit completed. Yeah, this program's amazing. They've seriously thought everything out from the ground up so beautifully. I have so much respect for Blackmagic for what they've done, and very thankful for the software, because it's honestly got me excited to edit again, and it's leveled me up as a video editor. So thank you guys for sticking with me. Looks like we still got about 500 people in here. That's awesome. Thank you so much for showing up, everybody. But now is the time to share a little bit about my course. I want to show you guys a little bit of what the course looks like. This is a course that I've been working on for a very long time. I've put over 6 months of planning and filming and editing into this course. And even more time, I've actually spent more time within the course just experimenting and optimizing my workflow or translating my workflow from Premiere Pro to this software. So I've put a lot of time and effort into making this course, and I can honestly say that I'm very proud of what I've made. Yeah, I genuinely believe that this is the course that I wish I had when I was first starting off in the software. So first thing to note is that the new DaVinci Resolve manual, it has 92 videos. So there's 92 videos. There's 13 different modules just within the DaVinci course. And that's just over 18 hours of content. That's a lot of content. And yeah, I pretty much go over every single feature that I think is important within the software. And I'm going to continue to dive into more features in the future. But throughout the process of me learning this software, I realized, how much time I was wasting going back and forth between different sources to try to find information and just to try to find out how to do things the way that I specifically do in Premiere Pro or Final Cut within this software. Most things are relatively straightforward when you're talking about the cut tab and the edit tab, but then trying to figure out how to do things, how I do things in After Effects, trying to translate those in Fusion, or figure out how to use the color tab, or dive into automation within Fairlight. There's a lot of different sources out there on the internet, and it was tough for me. It took me a long time to find information that I was looking for. So I eventually just ended up resorting to reading the DaVinci Resolve manual itself. And look, here's the thing. DaVinci has made an incredible manual. They dive deep into every single section of the program. The manual is over 4,000 pages long. It's a long manual. I'm definitely a software nerd. I enjoy reading that kind of stuff. But what I've done with this program is I've taken all of the most important information from that manual and essentially translated it into easy to understand videos. And yeah, like I said before, I think that this is right now the best way to learn DaVinci Resolve on the internet. I can confidently say that. So just want to remind you guys to stick around to the very end. We're going to be doing a Q&A. Sorry, we're going a little bit over time, but yeah, just stick around for a Q&A, and we're also going to be giving you guys an exclusive discount as well. So the Collier Creative, that's my school. We have 2 products now. We have the KC All Access, that's the full course, as well as the community. So KC All Access it includes the DaVinci Resolve module. So everything that I had just talked about, 19 hours of content, 15 or 12 modules, and over 90 videos. But on top of that, you also have all the other modules like After Effects. We also have Premiere Pro, if that's something that you're still interested in. And I also have other modules like FPV, shooting modules. So I teach my my workflow when actually shooting out in the field. And I also talk about, I also sit down with my manager. This is something that a lot of students have been raving about, because this is information that you can't find in a lot of places. I basically just sit down with my manager and we have an open conversation about what it looks like to, operate a successful content creation business within the industry. We talk about how to secure clients. We talk about how to communicate with clients. How do you price your work? We dive into all of these subjects, which I know for people like myself who are artists and just starting out in the industry, or haven't actually gained much traction, those are always awkward topics and things that just don't flow as easily. So I sit down with my manager, Jordan Swintek, and he's able to give us all some guidance into his process of how, he does all of the back end. And I think that that's very valuable. All of the modules are very valuable. So that is Colder Creative All Access. And on top of all of that, you also get access to our community, which is a huge part of Colder Creative. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the second product is just the DaVinci Resolve solo module. So if you're only interested in learning about DaVinci Resolve, you can purchase that module on its own. The KC All Access is currently $1,300, but we're giving you guys an exclusive discount, a limited time discount at the end of this, so just stay tuned. The DaVinci Resolve solo module is currently $800. And yeah, for, you know, what I tell all of, what I tell any aspiring filmmakers, editors, people trying to level up their craft is invest in yourself, you know, invest in the knowledge. That's, you know, a no-brainer. If you're trying to level up and stand apart from other people, you need to educate yourself. And you know, nowadays we're fortunate enough to not have to go to a school. You can learn online. And when you compare the amount of information, the amount of knowledge that I'm sharing with you guys, basically my entire life in this industry, I'm an open book. I share it all with you guys. You know, and to have this guidance from my manager, from, you know, my team, and the insights, it's honestly priceless. So, you know, I think if you're wanting to level up and you're wanting to take this seriously, I think that this is a great investment. It's a great buy, and there's so much value for what you're paying. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the community. This community for me has been probably one of the most rewarding sides of this this course for me. One of the most rewarding things that have come out from this course, just because I've seen the amount of opportunity that it's provided for our students. So here at Colder Creative, currently we have just under 3,000 students. So compared to other online schools right now, we're still fairly small. We're developing, which is good, because, you know, when things are smaller, it's it can be easier for you to get your work seen and potentially win contests and all that. But yeah, so we have a private Discord and Facebook group where our community members are able to communicate with each other. They're able to apply for almost monthly contests. We've been consistently doing a contest every month with a different partner each month. So because of my time within the industry, I've managed to develop a lot of partnerships with different brands and different clients. And my team and I are always trying our best to bring as much opportunity to our students as possible. This is, you know, one of the things that you just can't really put a price tag on, because it's created so much opportunity for so many of our students. For example, recently, we had Yes Theory. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the YouTube channel Yes Theory. They're massive. They're good friends of mine. They are always looking for good editors, and they came to me and my team and they said that they want to start to actively scout for new editors for their projects within the Colder Creative community, because they know that they can reliably find good editors within this community. So people like that, my friend Munch Max, he has a tourism business in Mongolia. He recently reached out and is looking to hire someone for a full-time job for a year to shoot and edit content in Mongolia. Just like a lot of opportunities like this that you just honestly can't find anywhere else. So, you know, to be able to provide that to the people that are signing up for KCL Access feels really rewarding to me. And to just see people's careers skyrocket, to see this community take their careers to the next level is amazing. Because, you know, it's one thing to give someone a fish, you know, and to feed them for a day, but it's another thing to teach them how to fish and feed them for a lifetime. And that's kind of how I feel this community has really blessed a lot of our members. Like I said, we do monthly contests, and each year we do a My Year contest, which I'm the most excited about, because that gives all of our students the opportunity to share their own stories and to really push their own creativity when it comes to shooting and editing and storytelling. And the winner of that contest gets to come out with me on a trip somewhere cool in the world. I always make sure that it's cool. The last person that won was this guy right here, Joshua Faila, a super cool guy. And we were able to go to Italy for a Panerai job, a job with Panerai. It's this watch company. They set it up. We stayed in an amazing hotel, like 5 stars, beautiful hotel. And we essentially got to experience what it's like to be in the Italian Marines for 2 days. And he was able to film the entire thing. He was able to meet Jeremy Jauncey, the founder of Beautiful Destinations, make that connection with him, meet other influential people in the space, build those connections, hang out with them, and of course, create a really cool video from this trip as well. We got to fly in like military helicopters. We got to do a lot of really crazy stuff. And this was an experience that was actually never even accessible to normal people outside of the Army. And Panerai had set this up, so I decided to bring, the winner of this contest. So you can ensure that if you win the My Year contest, you're definitely going to be coming out on an epic trip, and we're going to be able to spend some quality time together. And of course, that's not the only contest to look forwards to. Every month we have some kind of epic contest that allows you to push your own creative abilities, step outside of your comfort zone, and expose yourself and your work to a community of like-minded individuals who share the same goals and interests as you. That's huge. If you're not already part of a filmmaking community and for some reason you can't get involved in Colder Creative, then I recommend that you at least join some kind of online community out there that you can get a hold of. But in terms of quality, I would say that Colder Creative, this community has been insane, and what we're growing it to, and the amount of opportunity that we're bringing into this community is pretty awesome. So we have like a full-time team just managing the community, making sure that it's as good as it can be. So exciting stuff. It's definitely a very exciting stuff. Yes. Another thing I forgot to mention is 3 of our students have already been hired by Beautiful Destinations. That is the travel agency or travel company, huge social media account. I think they have, well over 10 million followers now. That was the company that I started off with. Alexis Lafren, he's now working with them. Same with another one of our students. And, it's like I said, it's just so cool to see our students excel, grow, become better creators, and then give them the opportunities that they deserve to make this a full-time career. And we also offer discounts. That's another thing as well. So like I said, we have lots of partners. We partner with like Glyph, with Lens Distortions, digital asset companies. We've partnered with a bunch of different companies, GoPro, and these companies are able to offer discounts. So literally just for the discounts alone, you're receiving a lot of value right there too. So there's a lot to look forwards to in this course. Now, thank you guys for sticking with me. We still got just under 500 of you here. Stoked for you guys to be here hanging out with me. Like I promised, I'm going to be showing you guys a little sneak peek into one of my projects. So why don't we open it up? Now, I am not going to be showing you much of it. Unfortunately, you guys just get a little sneak peek. That's all you get. Sorry. But I like to definitely keep the wow factor when it comes to revealing my work. So I'm just going to play a couple clips from here. Let's turn on a tune. I hope the music has been at a good level for you guys. Let me just turn it up a tiny bit. Okay, so keep in mind, yeah, this music is not part of it, but this is just a little snippet of my drone reel. Cool. I know it's a bit of a tease. You guys didn't get to see any of the transitions or anything like that. But like I said, I like to keep the wow factor. But what I will show you is my timeline. So we can see this is the main timeline. I deleted the song so you guys wouldn't know what song I'm using. Sorry about that. But I wanted to show you a couple things here. So essentially, the way that I just want to show you guys like one little tip before we end this off. Doesn't matter what program you're working in, whether it's Premiere Pro, Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve. Well, in Final Cut, you actually can't do this. Work with two timelines open. So, you know, I like to open up another timeline right here. So I have, this is called Pancake Timelines, where I can see two timelines at once. And essentially, I always create a new timeline called transition ideas. This is always a great idea. So essentially, whenever I'm going through my footage and my timeline and I have an idea for a transition, I'm like, okay, maybe I can use this clip for some kind of transition. Well, what I'll do is drag it into my transition timeline over here. And that way, anytime that I, you know, want or feel like working on transitions or masking or any of that kind of stuff, or, you know, I find another clip that could pair well with another clip, I have all of those clips in one timeline right here. And this is basically my space to work on transitions. So that's really important. You know, like, I think it's important to kind of isolate that space so for you to focus just on that one element in one space. And of course, I have my all selects timeline as well. This is the selects of the entire project. So you can imagine this is like 2 years of drone clips. There's a ton of epic stuff here, but I've essentially refined everything, put it all in one space. And now it's easy for me to work. You know, I have all of my best clips from about 2 years of filming all in one space. You know, if I have my main edit down here, if I have my main edit open down here and I want to start adding new clips, I can find a clip. This is a cool clip of a seal jumping out of the water. I can just take it, drag it into my main timeline wherever I want, and I'm good to go. So that is a little sneak peek. That's all you guys get. But I think that was pretty insightful. Now, I believe it is time to do a Q&A. So we have some questions here that I've been forwarded. I'm just gonna go through some of these and answer these for you guys. Have you checked CapCut? I have not. I will look into that. I'm gonna actually put that in my notes, see what that is. When creating a film, do you usually already have target or goal shots before shooting, or you just shoot and then come up with something later? That's a great question, and it depends on the project. You know, if it's just, it depends on like the energy going into it. You know, if it's something that I don't necessarily have too much time to plan, to do pre-planning for, then I'll just run and gun it. You know, I'll go out. If it's an action sport thing, I'll try to get as many angles as possible, shoot as much as possible, and then try to work with what I got afterwards. And honestly, some of my best transitions were made from just playing around with the footage that I already have. A lot of people think that like I'm some next level genius that pre-plans a lot of these transitions. A lot of them, no. A lot of them, they come from experimentation, from doing what I just showed you guys. Create that separate timeline for your transitions and throw your ideas down there. Spend time experimenting with different clips and seeing what works well. Learning how to play with the motion of clips, keyframing, position, rotation, scale, working with masks, understanding and motion tracking, understanding how to use all of those tools properly is essential for experimentation. You know, what I tell people, it's so important to understand the fundamentals of the software first. Once you understand the fundamentals, the foundations of how things work, the tools, the essential tools, then you can start to get creative and go crazy. And then you can just stay in your flow state as an artist and, you know, put in your music and just flow. And you know how to experiment with things. You know how to test if things are going to work. So you don't have to spend so much time, you know, trying to make something work and then it doesn't work. But like you can test things out to see if they work first. And there's just different tactics that you can learn as an editor to make this process a lot easier. But yeah, so it depends on the project. Sometimes there's pre-planning, sometimes there isn't. Most of the time that has to do with the budget. Is the budget enough for me to, actually devote time to pre-planning? Do I have enough time to pre-plan things beforehand? Those are all factors, right? What do you usually do when you run out of creative juices? That's a great question as well. There's the people that just rely on the creative juices to do things, and there's the people that do things no matter how they feel. And most of the time, those are the people that succeed. It's not about waiting until you feel inspired. It's about getting into the program and just doing it. It's about taking the time. It's about starting. If you are never spending any time in the program, don't expect to progress. If you are spending an hour in the software every day, experimenting, learning, then you're gonna progress naturally. That's through the process of experimentation and consuming information through a course, through YouTube, through whatever it is, you are going to learn in that way. And so, yeah, I think it's about instilling the discipline to show up every day. It's not about just waiting for the creative juices. But one thing that I do know is when the creative juices do hit, take advantage of that. Tell your grandma you can't go visit her. Tell your mom you can't hang out with her. When you're feeling creative, take advantage of that, because sometimes that's rare. Sometimes I'll go like a month without feeling creative. But when I do, I'm like, all right, airplane mode, I'm focusing on what I want to create right now. Let's go through a couple more of these. How do you figure it out? Anything in particular you love about Fusion? Honestly, Fusion, it's a beautiful program. It's a beautiful software. And I'm still learning, just like how I always felt like I was still learning After Effects. After Effects has a ton of different features, and I still do use After Effects for some things, but within Fusion, the thing that I love about it is the fact that it is node-based. At first, like, nodes sounded fairly intimidating to me, but that's simply because I just didn't understand how they work. Like, to me, it was like, I remember how I felt about cryptocurrency. I don't know if a lot of you guys are into crypto, but when people started to talk about digital money, I was like, that just sounds dumb. I was like, how are you telling me that intellectual people are into digital money? But then I realized, I sat down, I spent one day learning about how cryptocurrency actually works. And then I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And now I'm a huge believer. I'm all about it. Same thing as nodes. Like, at first it was like, how do you work with nodes? Like, where's the timeline? There's still a timeline. The timeline's there. It just, you work with different effects, media, all that stuff in a different way. You just work with it in a node space versus a timeline space. And honestly, it's been amazing in a lot of situations because you can see every element of your project in one space, and nothing's hidden in layers like it is in After Effects. Everything is visible all the time, and that makes a huge difference when you're doing more advanced compositing work. It's pretty awesome. Can you add crypto to payment? That would be cool. I'll check in with the team, see if we could do that. That would be dope. Is Fusion as capable as After Effects? Definitely. And especially for all the things that I would use After Effects for, the main things that I would use when creating my advanced transitions is masking, tracking, keyframing, and using the graph editor for keyframes. So that's very important. Fusion has all of those things, and it does all of them very well. So for what I need, it does things very well. But it's like it's an endless world that you can just continue to dive down, just like After Effects. You can do so many things within these programs that I'm in no way saying that I know how to do everything. There's no way. It's a constant learning journey. As I want to level up, as I want to try new things, I learn new things, but for what I need, it's got everything and it does it very well. The tracking is insane. It's the fastest tracking I've ever used in any other program. Normally, if I wanted to track a whole scene, I'd like in After Effects, you click track forwards, and then I go make a T or something because it takes a while. DaVinci is Fusion's fast, and it's been great. It's been very good. I love everything about it. Let's see what else we got here. Give a tip to kill stress and anxiety while editing. For me, to kill stress and anxiety just in general, because that's something that everyone deals with. That's if someone says they don't have any stress or anxiety in their life, then they're probably some enlightened monk. But stress and anxiety comes up in every single person in my life. I know that in one way or another, stress and anxiety comes up in some way. And it is important to learn how to relieve yourself of that. For some people, it is that creative outlet. It's just getting creative. And that is their outlet to, kind of release that tension. I like to work out. I like to do ice baths, and I love to do breath work. Breath work has been a big one for me. If you guys are interested in learning breath work, there's this great app called Othership, OTHERSHIP. I've been using it daily. It's been amazing. The app is a bit expensive, but they have free videos on YouTube. I would just recommend just go check those out, try them out yourselves. It's been transformative for me in my life. I recommend it to everyone in my life. What camera is your current go-to? I use the Sony A1. It's been great. I love to have a single camera that does high quality photos, it's like 45 megapixels or something. Amazing video, 8K 30, 24, 4K 120. I love the Sony colors. At first I didn't. Back in the day, I was super Canon fanboy, and I love Canon too, but like now I'm at the point where it doesn't matter. Like either with the bitrate of both of the cameras and my knowledge within color grading, I can make anything work. Like the OnePlus video, if you guys haven't seen that whole thing was shot on a phone, and I was able to confidently get the grades that I wanted out of those shots, out of 8-bit footage, because of color grading in DaVinci. Like if you know how to color grade, you can work with like any kind of footage. Let's see. Would you prefer the new Avata drone from DJI or a self-built drone with a GoPro on it? So if you're into self-built drones, just wait a little bit longer, because the company might be releasing something pretty cool in the near future that you guys might be interested in. Can't go into specifics, but what do I prefer? I like them both, honestly. Like 5-inch quads are dope. Flying with like normal lipos, you have a lot of power. I like to fly 5 inches. You get a lot of power. It feels like you're flying like a sports car. The Avata is really dope though. It's like all in one package. You don't have to worry about buying things separately. Everything's there. And the new goggles are really dope. So which one's better? Like moving forwards, I will probably use the Avata in a lot of situations, but it doesn't have the performance of like a normal 5-inch build, Let's see what else. So we only have about like 2 or 3 more minutes of this Q&A. So someone's asking, can I do multiple payments for the course? Yes, you can. So for those struggling financially, please reach out to our team at info@coldercreative.com. And we have payment options there. You just have to reach out. So that's info @coldercreative.com. Reach out there and you will be connected with my team, and they will help you figure out a payment plan. And I believe I am going to also talk about the discount codes in a second. So thank you guys for holding on, for staying on. I'm going to be letting you know about the discount codes that you will receive. These are exclusive to you guys. So what would be your advice to someone who is intermediate in Premiere Pro and After Effects and confused in shifting to DaVinci Resolve? as he has spent 4 months in learning these two softwares? So that's a good question. I was in that same position. And what I had to do was to tirelessly go through the internet to find different answers to my questions, and read the manual to find certain things, and also transition all of my shortcuts from Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve. And that took a bit of time simply because it took time to find the answers. The course makes things very simple and straightforward. If you have a certain workflow within Premiere Pro, you go through my course, you'll be able to figure out how to replicate that exact same workflow. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that within a day. What are the main things that an editor needs to transfer from one software to another? The main thing is your editing shortcuts. What shortcuts do you consistently use? Figuring out what those are, and changing them to make them the same within DaVinci Resolve. Now, if you don't have an elaborate keyboard shortcut layout developed already, then I would recommend to scrap yours and start from scratch and use the Colder Creative keyboard shortcut layout. There's been so much thought, time, and effort put into developing this into the way it is to make editors as fast and efficient as possible. So if you are willing to scrap your current shortcuts and start with new ones, I would definitely recommend this. If you're not willing, then that's fine. I also teach you in your course how you can take your existing shortcuts and apply them within DaVinci Resolve to basically make your workflow the exact same as in whatever program that you're using. So yeah, I guess I would say buy my course, invest in yourself, level up in your craft. By buying my course, you are ensuring that you are given the tools to learn this program, learn it very well, and take your editing to another level, make the editing process more fun, and essentially like future-proof your skills. Because I think DaVinci is going to be leading the way, and they clearly already are. If you don't see that, then I don't know what to tell you. So really quick before we leave, guys, let's do a little Zoom call, group photo. I see all y'all. What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining. Honestly, like, this is so awesome that you guys are able to take this time to listen to me. And I hope that you learned something new. Hope you had a good time. So I'm going to take a selfie real quick. Let's all smile for the camera. Yeah. One more. 3, 2, 1. Heck yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I think I can only see like 20 of you or so. So sorry to everyone else that didn't make the screenshot. Cool. And the last slide, let me show you guys the discount. This is exclusive to you guys for sticking around to the very end of the presentation. So we have an exclusive discount going on for 72 hours. For all access, we are giving $100 off for the next 72 hours. And for DaVinci, we're giving $50 off. This is only available for the next 72 hours. So if you are interested and you're ready to dive in and level up as a video editor, there's no better time than right now to purchase. We don't normally do discounts. I don't think we've ever done one yet. So if this is a great opportunity, this is a great time for you to jump in. And I also believe that we are going to be closing enrollment in the near future as well. Last time we closed enrollment, we were closed for a year, and we were focusing on just the current community that we had. So yeah, so if you are serious about stepping up your video editing skills and joining our community and receiving all the benefits that Colder Creative offers, then now is a great time to jump on in. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. All of you guys are legends, whether or not I will see you in Colder Creative or not. Either way, thank you for joining me. Yeah, much love, and hope you have a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are in the world. And also, one last thing, we are going to be sharing this recording as well with the registered emails. So to the people that weren't able to show up or stick around for the whole thing, you'll be able to watch it again. Much love, everybody. Take care. Hello, everyone.